Hello everyone, this is Gihan Pereira here, and welcome to this online presentation, which is all about performance and productivity, and what I've called it, how to get things done when everything keeps changing. And of course, we've been through a lot of change and disruption and uncertainty, and that's not ending anytime soon. So today, I want to give you some really practical things that you can do, given that we've got this ongoing change and uncertainty. So I know that this is I've scheduled this. Thank you very much for people who are joining now. It's great, it's great to see the people who are here, but I've scheduled this at a time when I know a lot of people on holidays, with between Easter and Anzac Day and his school holidays. So I'm expecting a small group here, and I've designed this so that we can customize how we go through this little journey here. So for people who don't know me, and I know most of the people who are here, but for people who don't know me, my name's Gihan Pereira. I'm a business futurist. I do a lot of work with the leaders, especially now in uncertainty and change. You can find out all about me at gihanpereira.com. I don't want to spend the first 5 minutes talking about myself. I will say I work with a lot of leadership groups around Australia, New Zealand and the region. And, I'm showing a sample of them here, and you can see some of them are large, some of them are small, some of them are government, some of them are corporate. They're from, some of them are multinational, some of them are within Australia. And I've just found that working with leaders, many of them, especially now, are facing the same kind of issues around productivity and performance. So this is what I want to share with you, some really practical things that you can do to improve your own productivity, and if you're a leader, how to improve your team's productivity as well. So my 3 rules of engagement for all my presentations. First of all, I'd love you to give you some things to think about and think a little bit differently. So do what you can to eliminate distractions and interruptions, and find a quiet space for the next 45 minutes that we've got together, and also be a bit playful. So join in here, because we've got a relatively small group. There's a chance for you to interact. Please ask questions in the chat as you go. I'll have questions for you as well, and I might even have a fabulous prize to give away before the end of the session. But I really do want to give you some really practical things that you can take and put into action as well. Okay, so the reason I'm running this session now is because at the moment I'm just about to start one of my 3-month group leadership programs, and this is a small group program. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it here. You can find out more at futurereadyleaders.today, but we're just about to start, and we start in early May. There are a couple of spaces left, but we're almost full. And just looking at the things that people said on their enrollment form, I asked them, what are the sort of challenges that you're having? And I looked for common themes, and one of them that came out really strongly this time, here's just a sample of what different people said. So one person said, great, I've got a motivated team, but in busy times it's quite challenging because they are motivated and they keep asking for my time. Here's another one she said that she prioritizes everybody else first, and so she feels overloaded. And here's somebody else, and he said that it's really important that he can manage his own workload as well as looking after his looking after his team. So that's why I was really keen to run this session now, to share some really practical productivity things. In this program, we'll go to this in more detail, but today I don't want to shrink it all down and try to do everything really quickly. I'd rather give you 1 or 2 practical things that you can take away, rather than just give you an overview that you can't really take anything away from. Okay, so I'd like to know what's getting in your way. And I've got 4 statements here for you, and we're going to run a poll in about a minute. And I'd like you to think for yourself, on a scale of 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, how important or how relevant are these things for you? So are you in the stage now where you keep getting distracted, and because there's lots of change happening and you can't get any work done? Okay, just in your head, just think about this, and we'll do this in an online poll in a minute. Are you in this situation that things keep changing, so it's difficult for you to set anything that's like a meaningful goal because everything's so short term? Are you in the situation that you've got a team of people and they're always interrupting you because everything's changing, so they can't really follow what they already know, they can't rely on systems and processes? And the last one is that because the future's uncertain, people are worried and they're stressed and they're anxious and they can't keep focused, so they don't get their work done. So those are 4 different productivity statements, and I'd like to know where you sit on a scale of 1 to 5 on each of them. So let's do this as a poll. Okay, so we can see this here. Yeah, okay, so getting distracted, interesting. So the reason I did that poll is because I do want to tailor this based on what's most relevant for you. So if you think about this in those 4 areas, there's your own productivity. Sorry, that's not very straight, but we'll make do. There's your own productivity, and there's your team's productivity. There's the immediate challenges that you're facing, let's call that now, and there's productivity based on what you're doing in the longer term or medium term goals. I really did get that quite crooked, didn't I? Let's make that better. Okay, so we've got these 4 categories here, and I reckon if you're thinking about your own productivity now, that first statement that I asked you to rate yourself is about you being really unfocused, because it's you try to do something and immediately something else gets in the way because there's some interruption or distraction. You could also be uncertain about the future because you don't know what your long-term goals are, because you actually don't know what the long-term future looks like. And then if you've got a team and your team is unfocused, what often happens is that they're too cautious. So I'm saying cautious here, and I actually mean overly cautious, because they're in an unfamiliar situation. So instead of using their own initiative, they come back to you and ask for help, which means that you get distracted, you become a bottleneck, they don't build their own judgment and they don't build their own experience and their own wisdom around that. And the last one is if your team doesn't really know what's happening in the future, they're worried about their own jobs, they're worried about their own role, they're worried about people in their family catching COVID-19 or themselves maybe even, so then they become anxious. So we're going to focus today, given what you said in the poll, we're going to focus, let's do these 2 first, and then if we get time we might go to the cautious one, but I'd rather that we cover at least 2 of them in enough depth that you'll get some value that you can take away and put into practice. Okay, so this is our game plan. Let's talk about if you're unfocused, what you need to do, and let's talk about if you're you're uncertain about the future, what you need to do, and maybe we'll get around to talking about building judgment in your team as well. Okay, so that's kind of our agenda for today, and if I can show this to you in these 4 areas, so you could be unfocused, you could be uncertain, you could be your team could be too cautious, or your team is really anxious about the future. Okay, and so I was prepared to jump around and do them in the order that you asked for, but thank you for doing it in the order that I prepared the slides, but we'll see how we go. Okay, so this first area is, and I think this is actually, I'm really pleased that you put this one first, this first area is the one that will make the biggest difference to your own personal productivity. And this is about putting yourself first. So in this world where we're full of disruptions and interruptions and distractions, what can we do to put ourselves first so we get the most important things done? And I want to give you some really practical things around that. I'm going to give you 3 strategies that you can use today to improve your productivity. And it's all based around this idea that we need to make time for ourselves to do what Cal Newport calls deep work. So this is the really important work, and you know what that is in your personal life and your professional life. There's some really important things to do, like focus on your personal relationships, focus on your financial stability. In your professional life, there's some really important projects you should be working on. Depending on your seniority, there's some important things that you should be doing for your own professional development and your team's development. But it's very difficult to do that deep work when we live in this world where we've got constant interruptions and distractions. So the goal of this is to give you more time to do deep work. And sometimes that might just be sitting there and thinking or planning or strategizing. And it's very difficult if every 3 minutes there's a notification on your phone, or somebody pops their head around the corner, or you get a little notification from somebody who's working remotely, popping up on your laptop while you're trying to get work done. The trouble is now we're full of distractions and interruptions, and things like social media, like the social media platforms, have an incentive to distract you as much as possible, and it works against us. It works against us being able to do deep work. Okay, so one of the biggest challenges still is email. Okay, I'm not going to ask you this question, but I reckon if I asked you how many emails have you got currently sitting in your inbox, and I have asked this to groups over the years, and it's not surprising to get thousands, get answers of people who've got thousands of emails in their inbox. If that's you, or even if you're finding that you've got fewer than that, but you're not getting enough, you're not clearing them quickly enough, this strategy will work very effectively. So I'm going to share with you a really, really, really simple thing that you can do to manage your email inbox so that it doesn't get in the way of interrupting you every time you're trying to sit down and think or doing deep work. It's so simple that some people think it's simplistic and they won't try it. Can I please ask you to try this out? Try it. If it doesn't work, go back to what you were doing and try something else, because it seems like it's too simple to work. But here's how it works. So think about your letterbox that you have outside your house. You go and check the mail every day, and now of course there's less and less paper mail coming into it, but you go and check your mail every day, and what do you do with the stuff that arrives? Well, some of it goes straight in the recycling bin. So you might be checking your mail, and while you've got the recycling bin open, you chuck some stuff away. There's some other stuff that might need some urgent action, so you take it in and put it somewhere where you can't miss it. And there's some other stuff that may not need urgent action, but it might need some action a little bit later, so you might take it somewhere else. So for example, I've got a home office. Some of the mail I get, I stick on my desk there, so that because it's related to work. Some other stuff is not related to work, so I can put it on my dining room table. And you process your email that way. You process your mail that way. I bet you, like everyone's got their own process for managing their mail that they get out of their letterbox. I bet you there's something that you never do when you take mail out of your letterbox. You never shove it back in. Okay, so for example, if you still have, of course we get a lot of paperless bills now, but if you get a bill in the mail and it's due in 3 weeks' time, what do? You never shove it back in the letterbox so that tomorrow you'll go and pull it out again. You think, I still don't need to process it. I'll stick it back in the letterbox. The next day, I don't need to process it. Stick it back in the letterbox. Okay, you never do that. And yet with our email, we do that all the time. We open an email in our inbox and we say, I don't need to process that now, but I want to keep it there. So the next time I open my inbox, it's still there. And I think that's the biggest productivity killer when it comes to email. So here's a really simple thing that I recommend that you do with your email inbox, which will immediately solve that problem. And as I said, be careful, because some people think this is too easy. So here's what you do. You've got your email in your inbox, and you set up 3 folders. And depending on your email system, they may be called folders. I use Gmail, so they're called labels. So my three labels are called today, this week, and next week. Okay, so these are folders, labels, tags, whatever your email system calls it. Now here's the rule. When you open your inbox and there's some email sitting there, then every time you open an email, there are only 2 things that you can do with that email. You can delete it, which is fine. If it's some email that you don't need to process, just delete it. Or you can move it to one of these 3 folders. If you need to act on it today, it goes in the today folder. If you need to act on it sometime this week, but not today, it goes into the this week folder. And if you don't need to think about it this week at all, it goes into the next week folder. Okay, so if you open your inbox and there are 20 emails in there, then it takes, I don't know, like 20 seconds to process them. And process just means delete or move into one of these 3 folders. That's it. That's it. And after that, then your email inbox is empty. Right? That's a process. Now, what if something really, really urgent comes in? What if there's something that's really super urgent and you need, in your inbox, and it absolutely needs to be addressed immediately? What do? Push it into the Today folder. You don't address it immediately. You push it into the Today folder, go through the other emails, push them into these 3 folders, and then you know that it's super urgent, so you open up the Today folder and you work on that email. You act on whatever you need to do. What if there's an email that comes in and all you need to do is reply to say thank you? Okay, and then the person actually doesn't even need to see your reply, but you want to reply saying thanks for that. What do? What most people do is they reply to it while it's in the inbox. What you do is you say, no, I don't need to do that. I'll reply to them later today. Or maybe I can even reply tomorrow to say thank you, because it's not a big deal. Okay, so every email goes into one of these 3 folders if you don't delete it. That's the process. Now, as I said, it's so simple. It sounds simplistic. It sounds like it's not going to make any difference. It's like that metaphor of moving deck chairs around in the Titanic, but it's not. It makes a huge difference, especially if it's a long time since you've had an email inbox that's empty. You can't believe the psychological relief of opening your email, opening your inbox, and then a minute later, at most, the inbox is empty. Okay, and the reason this is important is because the email that's coming into your inbox is generally other people's goals, other people's priorities. And what you want to do is not live your day, live your life and live your days, focus on responding to other people's goals and priorities. Now, of course, some of them are your own priorities as well, and some of them are your own goals, but and there may be replies to that. But what you want to do is make sure that the inbox doesn't control your priorities. By moving them into these folders, you manage when you're going to prioritize and how you're going to manage them. Okay, I want to stop and answer questions, because every time I share this, people have some questions to me, like they go, but. So let me, you can either type questions in the chat, or because we've got a smallish group, if you want to turn your microphone on and ask a question out loud, please do that. Kelly says, when do you get to this week? Yeah, so right. So what happens is, so I've told you what you do when you open your inbox. So then what I do, Kelly, is, like let's say there's 20 emails by the time I finish this presentation. I file them away. They go into today, this week, or next week. Fine. If there was anything urgent, I process it immediately, but it's almost never the case where it's super urgent and I need to process it immediately. Then any time through the day when I want to take a break or want to check my email, if there's stuff in today that I'll open the today folder and process some of the stuff that's in there. Then you said, when do you get to this week? So what happens is at the end of the day, you know that there's nothing in this week that was important for today, because otherwise it would have been here. So at the end of the day, you then decide how you're going to process those emails. And again, like these folders are not meant to be your to-do list. You've got some other system where you've identified the things you're going to do for the day. This is just a way to, a handy way to process the incoming email. So this week is stuff that you're going to do like tomorrow or the day after, depending on how late you are in the week. So at the end of the day, there's nothing important that's been missed there. Do you close your emails in between checking? So Emily, I think you're asking, do you close your, like not have my email open? If that's the case, then the answer is I don't have notifications turned on. So if emails come in, they come in the background. And I'll show you the process I use during the day that I'll recommend to you to get stuff done. But yes, I don't get a ping on my phone or a notification on my laptop every time a new email comes in. I think that's the question you're asking. Kelly says, so the idea is to sort your emails first, then work on them. Yes. Exactly right, Kelly. And the way to sort them is get them out of the inbox. I know other people have sorting systems, like they put little red flags and green flags and amber and urgency notes, but they leave them in their inbox. which means that every time you open your inbox, those emails are still there. This way, your inbox is literally empty. So it's inbox zero, but it's not inbox zero by you having to frantically respond to everything so your email's empty, so your inbox is empty. It's inbox zero by saying, I'm going to put these in these temporary folders so my inbox is empty every time I open it. Okay, or a few seconds after I open it. Okay, that's the process. People say to me, well, what about you're going to forget these emails? No, you're not. You're not. You know that there's emails in the today folder which you have to get to today. There's emails in this week which at the end of today you're going to decide what you're going to do with them. There's emails that you don't need to think about till next week. Literally, they just go out of your head until you do your planning on Sunday night or Monday morning. It's only then that you have to look at these emails. And by the way, it doesn't need to be next week. It could be next month, but just stick them in the next week folder because you don't have to think about them till you start planning the week ahead. Okay, another question people ask me is like, how do I do this when I've got 1,000 emails in my inbox now? How do I get to this stage? There are two ways you could do this. So one way is a nuclear option. So the nuclear option is to select every email in your inbox and delete it. Okay, so then it goes into trash. Now, then what you do is you go through the trash and you undelete the emails that are actually worth keeping. So some people will do that, and you go, okay, well, that's worth it. Just for once, I get to the point where my inbox is zero again, and then I can start this process. The other way, which is a little bit easier to do and perhaps might not give you as much stress, is that you create another folder called whatever you like say April 2022, and you should take all the emails, move them into that folder, and then over time you go through and you process them. So they're not in trash, but they're in this other temporary folder that you go through and process. But the idea is that once you get to inbox zero, you stay at inbox zero. And my inbox has been literally empty for the last 10 years or so. Or if it's not empty, it becomes empty within a minute of me opening it. Okay, do that. And you can do this on your phone as well. So on your phone, if emails come in, just sort them into these folders. And this is just a temporary sorting, so your inbox stays empty. Any other questions about that? As I said, it just seems so simple, maybe even simplistic, that you think it won't work. But the people who've tried it, they just, like people have said, this is a game changer for me because it means that every time I open my inbox, I don't have this sinking feeling that there's more and more stuff coming in. Another question I often get is what happens if there's just too much email to process and you just never get time to everything in today. That's a separate problem. Okay, that's a separate problem, and that's not what this process is about. Yeah, Kelly, exactly right. Inbox zero is a way to reduce the stress of opening email. Yes, and not only the stress, Kelly, the other really key thing around this is it also means that you're not processing your day on other people's priorities. And that's the more important thing, because what often happens is you open your inbox, there's 50 emails in there, and you think, oh my God, there's so much stuff I need to do. Let me just get through some of these and then I can get back to my main work. And that's the wrong way around. It should be saying, there's so much really important work for me to do. Let me make sure I do that, but keep an eye on making sure that nothing urgent comes in the meantime. Okay, the only email that you act on is urgent email. So even if somebody sends me an email that all I need to do is reply and acknowledge, obviously if I need to acknowledge it immediately, it goes in the today box and then I'll process it from there. But otherwise it can go in this week. And I got an email today from a client who sent me something, some information which is just for me, and she doesn't need to know that I've got it. She just sent it through, but I do want to thank her. I won't do that today. Why would I do that? Why would I make that top priority? That one goes into this week, so I can do it maybe at the end of the day if I really feel like it, but I can equally do it tomorrow. Okay, Kelly says it'll take some time to take some discipline to implement. Where we think all email is urgent. Even if you think all email is urgent, Kelly, do this. So what Kelly's saying is that there's all this email which you think is urgent. So like 75% of your email is really urgent email. Sure, no problem. Just shove it all in the today box. This one may go there. And then open up the today box and decide whether you're going to process it. It's exactly the same as processing it from here, except that you're not processing it from there. And it just gives you a little bit more of a clearer head and a better perspective on how urgent it really is. Okay, it's such a simple thing to process. You don't need new email systems, you don't need fancy processes, you don't need a lot of time to do this. Yeah, that's what we're used to feeling about email, that everything's urgent. Yeah. Okay, but still do this, right? Still do this, and you'd be surprised how many things you feel aren't as urgent if you go, well, I need to act on this sometime today. Just try it. Okay, any other questions about that? Okay, please do that. Please do that. If email is a problem for you, this is one of the quickest ways to resolve the stress around opening your inbox and then the action of working on other people's priorities, which a lot of the email is. Okay, it just gets your email out of your inbox, just like you get letters out of your letterbox and you never shove them back in there. Okay, let's continue. So now that we've done that, now that we've got control of our inbox, how do we decide what are the important things you're going to do? And I reckon you can do this on a daily basis, and you can do this on a longer term. And I reckon one of the things you can do to prioritize each day is a process that I learned from one of my friends, Neen James. So she's an expert in productivity, and she talks about not so much time management, but attention management. I'd highly recommend her book, Folding Time. You can see her name there, Neen James, N-E-E-N, Neen James. She's an Aussie. She now lives in the US, and she told me this idea, which she recommends to all her clients to manage their days better. So what she says you do is at the start of each day, set aside 5 minutes or 10 minutes and get a post-it note, or if you like 3 post-it notes, and write down on there 3 things that you want to achieve for the day. Okay, 3 important things you want to achieve for the day, which aren't already scheduled. 3 things that you want to achieve if you focus on them. So for example, tonight Nikki and I were going out to dinner, and that's a really important thing for the day. It's a date night for us, but that's not going to go on my list because that's going to happen anyway. But there are some other things that are going to go on my list, like my Future Ready Leaders program. I've got to do a little promo video for that, and it's very easy for me not to do that and for it to slip my priorities, but that's on my list. So you write down 3 things that you're going to do for the day, either on 1 post-it note or 3 separate notes, and you carry them around with you. And every time something else crops up, you look at your list and you say, is this more important than these 3 things that I've got? If it is, and it's really urgent, important or urgent, and you really need to tackle it, of course you tackle it. But if it's not, and most of the time it's not, then you put it aside and go back to your 3 things. And of course you cross them off as you go. Now, some days you won't complete all 3 things. Some days you won't even complete any of the 3 things, because like everything falls on you and it just becomes a panic crisis day. That's okay. At least you started the day with your list of 3 things that you were planning to achieve, and you judged everything else based on those 3 things. Okay, again, it's a really, really simple process, and sometimes I forget to do it, and I'll regret it. Now, you can do it with paper notes, like post-it notes, as Neen suggests. You can get little note apps on your phone, so I've got one on the home screen of my phone, but actually, frankly, I find that the post-it note works better for me, and I stick it on my laptop or wherever it's really visible throughout the day. And the question you ask yourself is, is this new thing that's come in more important or more urgent than these 3 things? And sometimes you cheat and you go, oh, I'll do this because it seems like a little bit more fun. I want to distract myself because one of the 3 things is really difficult. That's okay. But at least you start off with the right intent, and as much as possible, you try to commit to that intent. This is all about putting yourself first. Again, it's not perfect, but it's starting off with the intent that you put yourself first. And absolutely, if crises come along and you need to drop some of those things off the list, that's okay, but you start with them on there. Questions or comments about that one? Okay, let's continue. The third thing I'm going to suggest for you in this area of putting yourself first is, so we talked about email not distracting you from your priorities. We talked about a way that you can set your priorities so that it becomes exactly what Vanessa said. It becomes intentional. The third thing is, now how do you actually get the work done? So we've got rid of the distractions, we've got rid of the interruptions, we've decided what 3 things are important to us. How do we get things done? And again, in our open 24 hours world, it's difficult to say, I'm going to lock myself away in my office or go out somewhere for a couple of hours, or put my laptop in flight mode so I can work privately for a couple of hours. That's difficult to do. So you need to find time to do that deep work. And I'm going to suggest that you try out, if you're not doing something like this already, the Pomodoro Technique. So Pomodoro is Italian word for tomato, and it's based on this, so the guy who came up with this idea called the Pomodoro Technique, because you get these tomato timers and these kitchen timers. And the idea is that you work in sprints. So another word, for, another process, another name for this is sprinting. So the idea is you work in a sprint and then you rest. You do a sprint and then you rest. You do a sprint and then you rest. So the classic Pomodoro sprint is that you work in half-hour blocks, 30-minute blocks. So you do a sprint of 25 minutes. So you set a timer for 25 minutes and you work on stuff, whatever is important work, for that 25 minutes. In that time, you don't check email, you don't check social media, you try not to be distracted by anything else. You just work for 25 minutes, which is not a huge amount of time, but it's enough time to actually get your teeth into something. When the timer goes off, whatever you're doing, save your work, stop it, and have a 5-minute break. And you can do whatever you like in that 5 minutes. You can get up and go for a walk. You can have a chat with somebody as long as you're not interrupting them. You can check your email and empty your inbox down to 0 again. And then at the end of that 5 minutes, you start your 25-minute timer again. And you know that the process, if you read about the Pomodoro Technique, says that you do like maybe 3 Pomodoros in a row. So maybe you do a 30 minutes with the 5-minute breaks in between each one. And then you take a longer break, and that might be like morning tea or lunch. But the idea behind this is that 25 minutes is long enough for you to do a chunk of work, but not too long that you get bored or distracted and you distract yourself by going, oh, I've been at this for 2 hours. It's time for me to check my email and get distracted. And then you lose the discipline of that. But you let the timer manage your discipline. It's a really simple process. And again, if you haven't done anything like this, I recommend you try it and figure out how to make it work well for you. By the way, so I found for myself that 25 minutes, that's how I started, but it wasn't long enough. So now I set my timer on, there's Pomodoro apps on my phone. So you can download an app and set the timer anywhere you like. Mine is 40 minutes for a Pomodoro, for working, and then an 8-minute break. And that works really well for me. But start with the 25 and 5 and see how well it works for you. Okay, questions around that? Okay, I see, great idea, but I think, Kelly, that might have been for something earlier. Okay, questions about any of the stuff that we've covered so far, because I want to do the next one now. So anything there that really has been valuable for you, or you still got questions about? Okay, I don't see anything coming in, so I will continue. Kel says this is all good ideas. Okay, I'm actually going to do something just to break things up here. I'm going to do a little quiz. So it's a little bit different. So we're going to do an online quiz. Okay, first question is, it's actually not about the image, but it's a question around this question. So this is a bit of a practice question, but the points do count here. On which of Captain Cook's 3 Pacific voyages was he killed? The answers are in a random order, so pick one of them. On which of Captain Cook's 3 Pacific voyages was he killed? Okay, if you didn't get that one, I've got a bit worried for you for the rest of the questions. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, next question. Okay, so the average employee works for about how many hours productively in an 8-hour day, according to some research by Voucher Cloud? So a typical 8-hour day, the average employee, how many productive hours of work do you reckon they get? Yep, so the answer was 3. 3 hours in an 8-hour day. Yeah, okay, amazing, right? Actual productive work. Okay, so Meredith is leading. Sophie and Jessica behind, but that's okay. Okay, next one. Okay, employee fatigue per employee per year, roughly how much? This is in US dollars. Now, tired employees, in terms of productivity cost, what do you reckon? Yeah, okay, so significant, right? So it's quite a few Yes, quite a few people said 10,000, but actually it's not as much as that, but it's still pretty significant. Okay, so scores haven't changed there. Okay, next question. Okay, this is a slightly different one. This is you choose whichever one you agree with. So if you had a choice between flexible work, what kind of flexible work, and you had to choose one of these three options, would you have a 4-day week, but you lose 20% of your income because you're only working 4 days, a 4-day week, but each of those 4 days is longer, so you work the same amount of hours, or a 4-day week, and you, as long as you achieve the same goal as a 5-day week, there's no pay cut. Which would you? So you have to kind of work harder and be more productive. Right, interesting, right? So here, 3 people said you'd rather have long days, but have, in effect, have a day off because you work extra long days. Okay, so there's no right or wrong answer to this. This is just the majority wins. Okay, so everyone's on the board. There's a couple of questions to come. Well, there's 4 quick ones to come. Okay, next question. The highest performing employees, according to Gallup, have these 3 things in common: talent, high engagement, and which of these 3 things, or which of these 4 things? Yeah, so the answer is longevity, and one person got that right. Yes, if you've been in the company for 10 or more years, that has the biggest contributor, apart from talent and high engagement, to your performance. Okay, obviously these are all generalized and individual results may vary. Okay, a few more questions. According to the World Economic Forum, to be trained and skilled for the jobs of the future and the roles of the future, how much training each year will employees need? Yeah, okay, so yeah, like I was really surprised by this. So most people said 4 days, 10 days, 4 people said 10 days, which is like 2 weeks. The actual answer is like 5 working weeks per year to be ready for the future in training. Okay, Meredith is winning. Okay, and 2 more questions. Okay, in Microsoft Japan, pre-COVID, implemented a 4-day working week, and they did one of these things so that their people could be kind of more productive. Yep, so what they said is no meeting can be longer than 30 minutes, and they found that it made absolutely no difference to the effectiveness of their meetings. I reckon this is something that if you have authority in running meetings and holding meetings, make them no longer than 30 minutes. You probably find it makes no difference to the actual effectiveness, and it increases productivity. Okay, last question. Meredith is still winning. Oh, Sophie's caught up there. Okay, this is another one of these majority ones. Would you rather do something you love and just earn enough money to get by, or do something you hate but you earn a lot of money? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so lots of people said they'd do something that they love. Let's see who's a winner at this. Meredith and Sophie. Look, I'm going to give every participant a book. Okay, I'm going to send every participant a book. So if you can, please, just in your in the chat, you can send a private message to me. Just send me your postal address, so I'll have it saved in the chat, and I'll send you a physical copy of the book. Okay, so this is not the electronic copy. This is a physical copy. Whoops. I'll send you a physical copy of the book, Disrupted. Okay, so thank you for participating. Thank you for playing. Okay, so great. Thank you. So I can see Meredith's already started, and everybody else, if you can do that as well, sometime before we finish, which will finish in a few minutes' time. I want to give you one simple piece of advice around the second thing that we were going to cover, which is around projects, not goals. It's a very simple thing, and I don't have to go into a lot more detail, but this was the second thing. So if you're uncertain about your future, because you can't think far ahead to set even a 12-month goal, the key to do it is to do your work in projects, not goals. And that simply means instead of setting a goal for 12 months, which is, we don't know what the world's going to be like in 12 months' time, set yourself a 90-day goal. Okay, so if you think about what you're going to do for 12 months, you might have a theme for the 12 months. And your theme might be something like certainty or stability or leverage or leadership. And that's kind of going to drive you for the next year. But the next thing to do in a practical sense is to set a 90-day goal, a 90-day project. So 90 days is 3 months, it's 12 weeks. It has some huge advantages over a 12-month goal. And then, of course, you then break it down into what we're going to do every week and then what you're going to do every day, which is those post-it notes. And the value of this is that when you have a 90-day project, it's very easy to imagine in your head what the next 12 weeks are going to look like. You can set out in an Excel spreadsheet or on a bulletin board somewhere on a whiteboard, map out what you're going to do in each of the 12 weeks. And when you set a 12-month goal, it's not as easy to do that. And generally people start off, they've got a lot of momentum, they're excited, the first 2 weeks go great, but then it's easy for that to drop off. With a 12-week goal, which is what a 90-day goal is, then you know what to do each week. There's no time to waste time. You can set out a plan, everyone can see the plan. And so I've been working in 90-day projects for a long time now. And it means that you get significant work done in that time. Okay, so just do that. And the only thing I've got for you in this one is to say, look, what's your 90-day project? So if you had to commit to a project, and I would suggest to only do one. Do one in your, if you're going to do two, it can be one in your personal life, one in your professional life, but that's it. And commit on to one main project. Doesn't mean you can't do anything else, but your focus, your priority is going to be this one 90-day project. And then if you want some help around that, I highly recommend this book by Dr. Heidi Grant Halverson called 9 Things Successful People Do Differently. And she's got some really practical research-based strategies on how to get things done. And yeah, it's an easy book to read. You can download it on Kindle. You'll read it in an hour or two, and I suggest that you do that because it's really practical. Okay, that's the only thing I want to say about projects. Anne says, sorry, I had trouble with my phone. My email is this. Yes, so Anne said, yeah, absolutely, you qualify. So if you can send in a direct message to me with your postal address, then I'll send you a print copy of the book as well. Okay, and I think other people have done that. Okay, so to finish off, just to some people here are already in my program, the Future Ready Leaders program. So I won't go into that in more because I think we pretty much filled the program now. There are a couple of spaces left, but if you want to know more, have a look at futurereadyleaders.today, and it's a group coaching program for leaders within organizations, and there's also some one-on-one coaching with me, as well as some really useful resources for you and your team as well. So you get access to some my membership site with resources for yourself, your team gets access to, or you get access to some skill building presentations that you can run with your team as well. If you want to find out more, go to futurereadyleaders.today. So my last message for everyone, and which I often end my presentations with, is don't wait for everything to be perfect. Don't wait for all your ducks to line up in a row. If COVID-19 has taught us anything, it's just that we can't wait for perfection. We just have to continue to make progress. So start before you're ready, because the world won't wait for you. Thank you everyone for coming along. Thank you for participating. Please, if you've got some actions that you can put into place, put them into place today. Try them, see how they work for you, and then adjust them to make them work for you. Thanks everyone. If you want to get in touch, all my details are at gihanperera.com. Stay safe and healthy, and have a great day. I'll see you in the future.